Jesus Trilogy, Book 1, The Four Messiahs, Chapter 18. A lusty cry came from the back of the house. Saul heard it and let out a whoop. "What is it, Doc?" "It's a boy." Two nurses came scurrying out from the bedroom, one a dark older woman in her 50s, the other a young blonde of no more than 20. She was short and pretty, too. "Get some water, Pamela, now." "Yes, ma'am." "I'll take these hot towels," the older nurse said. Pamela grabbed some more hot water and raced back into the bedroom. Must be Greek, Saul thought. No blonde Hebrews in these parts. "Can I help?" Saul asked the older nurse. She didn't answer. She just hurried back into the bedroom with an armload of towels. Must be a big one, he thought. "How big is he, Doc?" Saul yelled into the bedroom. "First grade tomorrow," the doc yelled back. Saul's grin widened even more, and he began laughing so hard that he had to sit down in the kitchen chair. "You all right, sir?" Pamela's hand was on his shoulder. "No, I'm great," he said to the young nurse, and then another fit of euphoric laughter overtook him. "Did you hear that? First grade?" "Congratulations, sir. He's a fine-looking lad," Pamela said. "You must be Greek," Saul said. "We don't call them lads here." "Correct." "Thanks for your help, miss." He was clamping down a little now. "Mrs., sir." "Sorry." "I'm a married woman, married to a doctor. Not this one, of course," Pamela added. Old Doc Martin was at least 60, but the best doctor in Tarsus. He was somewhat of a specialist and even did a little teaching in the medical school in Lystra. He'd also been a guest lecturer on occasion. He lectured as far away as Jerusalem at the university. He was attempting to cut back on his workload, which wasn't easy. He had to deliver this baby. Saul was a colonel, albeit a Hebrew. He was on leave from his post in northern Judea, King Herod's territory. So Saul was a VIP. Old Doc Martin had no choice. Saul's home was in Tarsus, but as a Hebrew he had volunteered for Herod's army and had worked his way up to colonel in 4 short years. He had been a hero of the Battle of Magdala, where a bunch of Hebrew upstarts had tried to storm the fortress there. Magdala was a small town of about 15,000, 25 miles east of Nazareth on the west shore of the Sea of Galilee. The Hebrew band of heretics stormed the wall from the lakeside, where there were only a few guards. It was a good plan, but Saul sensed something was wrong. He heard just the slightest extra noise from the seaside and ran over to investigate. He single-handedly pushed over 3 scaling poles, all the while yelling for help. The army bowmen came running and blew away the enemy. Not one of the Hebrew band survived. After the barrage of arrows with flames attached, every Hebrew burned to death. It was known far and wide as the massacre at Magdala. The paper picked up on this overnight. Saul was awarded the Purple Cross and was given a parade in the streets of Magdala and then later in his hometown of Tarsus. Saul had been a maker of camping equipment, tents and the like, but when Herod's army recruiter came calling one spring day, Saul couldn't resist. Herod was king of all Judea at that time. Later he would be pushed out of Jerusalem and set up as the Tetrarch of Galilee. But even before his transfer, the Hebrew insurrectionists were becoming more and more of a threat. Saul thought, despite heroism like his own, that Herod might possibly be losing his grip. There had been talk of Rome taking over Judea, but no one wanted that to happen, so Herod upgraded his army. He went outside of his territory to recruit some better soldiers. Tarsus was Roman territory, but when Herod's recruiters flashed the silver shekels, many soldiers were convinced. A few years in a warmer climate of Judea couldn't hurt. Saul was one of those quick to act. Sewing tents together day after day bored him. It was a family business, handed down from generation to generation. But Saul was bored with life in general. He made a good living for Candace and the 2 girls. Candace was tall, dark, and beautiful. What more could any man want? Still, there was something missing. He talked it over with Candace. She said she wouldn't be there when he came back, but he knew she would, and now she was so proud of him. He had the Purple Cross, and she proudly displayed it on the mantel for all to see. His two girls, Angela and Beatrice, adored him, and Candace was a wonderful wife. She had even maintained her figure despite the two girls, and now he had his boy. Could life be any better? "What are you going to name him?" Pamela asked. Saul was startled out of his daydream. "Saul Jr.," said a voice from the other room. It was Candace. She was still moaning intermittently. A screamer, Doc Martin had called her. She had screamed during all three of her labors. As this one ended in another delivery of a healthy baby boy, Candace had said to the doc, "Who wouldn't scream after 30 hours of labor?" In the kitchen, Saul said, "I wanted to call him Anthony, but Candace would have none of it. Here, sir, hold him, but don't touch him. Just hold the blanket. We don't want the little big guy to start life with an infection, now do we?" "No, ma'am." Saul was shaking like a leaf and feared dropping Saul Jr. despite being seated. Thankfully, Pamela noticed his plight and took Saul Jr. "That's enough. He needs his mommy now." She took the baby back to Candace in the bedroom. Doc Martin, unlike many of his contemporaries, firmly believed that taking a few simple precautions would cut down on the number of infections in both mother and baby. He would not allow any non-medical personnel in the delivery room, and he had some pretty good statistics to back up his theories. The university medical leaders had called it nonsense, but his paper delivered at the annual JU medical conference proved him correct. He had a 10% lower infection rate than any previously published study. Old Doc Martin's reputation skyrocketed. He had even more work. It was becoming increasingly difficult to slow down. Royalty was even demanding his services, but he knew if he didn't cut back, it would kill him. His chest pains were becoming more frequent, but he continued to ignore them. He just prayed that his life wouldn't end in the delivery room. He delivered more and more children. He had even delivered many royal children, including Salome, daughter of Herodias. "Congratulations, Colonel," Doc said to the still shaky Saul. "Thanks," Saul said, a weak smile coming to his face. "We'll get cleaned up and get out of here as soon as we can. The baby is fine." "Thanks again, Doc. God bless you," Saul said. "I'll call his teacher tomorrow." "What?" Doc Martin didn't get it. Then it came to him. "Oh, you do that, Colonel. I'll expect he'll make a fine soldier." "Doc, what's today's date?" "The 9th of May."